Hi, everyone. This is Joni McGarry. Thank you so much for tuning in. Health insurance has been on everyone's mind these past couple of months as it became clear that premiums were going through the roof for most people. People started to think, geez, I can't afford this or I don't want to participate in this. Are there alternatives? At least I did. For a couple of years now, I've had to purchase health insurance on the marketplace. And at first, it didn't occur to me that I would have any other alternative but to do that because to go without health insurance just felt incredibly irresponsible. And I would just choose the plan that had the lowest premiums, even though they were lousy plans that had huge deductibles. I didn't read the fine print. I didn't read anything about them. I just chose a plan because I felt like I had to have health insurance. And certainly, it's a good idea for a lot of people to have it, or at least to have some kind of plan should things go sideways in your life, even if you're a healthy person. But as we went into this year, my premiums were going up 50%. And for me in the marketplace, that would have meant, given the high deductible that the plan I was going to have was going, the deductible it would have, I would have to pay more than $20,000 out of pocket before insurance started kicking in. And this felt really broken to me. I'm an incredibly healthy person. I don't use very much healthcare. And I felt like I was poised for yet another year to give what I consider like a donation to a health insurance company, to help them be profitable, to cover me maybe in the event of a catastrophe or an illness, and also to carry a lot of unhealthy people who aren't willing to take good care of their health. Certainly, not everybody with chronic conditions is in that ship. There are people who are unlucky or just who have chronic conditions from genetic conditions, whatever. But as a really healthy person who didn't use much healthcare, those kind of plans for me didn't make sense financially. And just sort of morally as well, I didn't want to participate in a system that I felt was consumer unfriendly, corrupt, bloated, broken, and contributing to the skyrocketing costs of healthcare. I've since learned that 1 out of 5 claims, in network claims, on average, are denied by health insurance companies. 1 out of 3 out of network claims are denied. Many people who go bankrupt from medical bills indeed have health insurance. So it's not a total guarantee that you're not going to be injured financially by large healthcare bills. So this year, I just decided I was not going to do it anymore. And I was going to vote with my money and say, no, I'm not going to be in this health insurance system. It wasn't an impulsive decision for me. I'm in a position to do it. And in like a year and a half, I'll be on Medicare. And I was just willing to take that chance and go without anything. But then my husband, through a friend of his, discovered CrowdHealth, which is a crowdfunding platform, which is an alternative to health insurance. And I started to look into that and I decided to opt in. So that is what I am doing instead of health insurance. And I feel very good about it just for my personal safety, if you will, my financial well being should something catastrophic happen. But more exciting to me is that I feel really good about being part of a community that is entirely voluntary, that is standing up in a way to disrupt the system that doesn't work anymore and providing an alternative for people to have a better way. And ultimately, as you'll hear from today's episodes, this company is committed to helping people have better outcomes and to be very well served as their customers in the health funding space. So today, my guest is Andy Schoonover. He is the CEO of CrowdHealth. And I was very excited to have him on to ask him all the questions about how it works and what this company is compared to a traditional health insurance company. And he didn't disappoint. He was a wonderful guest. And I know you're going to learn a lot and enjoy this conversation. He's incredibly inspirational, professionally and just on a personal level, what he's trying to do in this space. I have decided to help spread the word about CrowdHealth, and just in the hopes that people will just look at it and start to think about other alternatives to this broken system. Whether you choose CrowdHealth or not makes no difference to me, but to at least know that there are other opportunities out there that will fund your health insurance bills or healthcare bills that are not insurance. And you can visit the link in the show notes for CrowdHealth to learn all about it. Full disclaimer, I have a special code. It's Joni. And if you use that code or this link, you will receive a discount on the first 3 months of your membership to CrowdHealth, which is pretty substantial discount. And I will get some payment for the referral. What I'm going to do with everything I get from that is donate it to health freedom organizations and organizations that are committed to liberty, and especially in the area of medical freedom. So that's what I'm about. If you want to take a look and use my link, great. But just take a look because it'll open your mind to something else that is possible that perhaps you might not have considered before. So let me tell you a little bit about Andy. He has a really successful career before founding CrowdHealth. He has an MBA from Stanford. He's been in finance. He ran a company in the medical care space and transformed that company and made it incredibly successful. And then he had an episode, which he'll tell you all about, which prompted him to think about health insurance a different way. He is a family man. He is, seems to me to be a very responsible CEO, a steward of the company and the people who contribute to it. He's a good steward of their money, and he wants to change the healthcare space, and he wants to change people's health for the better. I was so inspired by this conversation, and I feel so lucky to have been able to speak with him. I'd like to welcome Andy Schoonover to the show. I'm so honored and delighted to have him. Hi, Andy. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, thanks for joining me. I am a very new member of CrowdHealth, and as I was
Welcome.
saying, thank you. I was saying before you and I started recording that I am quite sure that if I had invited the CEO of my previous insurance company on, I would have gotten crickets. So this is really a delightful experience. I want to start by asking you a little bit about yourself, your history, why you founded CrowdHealth, then get into what CrowdHealth is, how it
Mm.
works, and then maybe pull the camera back a little bit and talk about the general landscape you exist in the health, quote, insurance or crowdfunding space. So I'll let you take it away and tell me a little bit about your history and what led you to found CrowdHealth.
Yeah, this is my second healthcare company. I sold my first one and was sure that I wasn't going to do it again, just given the chaos that is healthcare. And funny enough, is I was my first company was selling into health plans, so I saw firsthand just the brokenness of decision making processes and things like that. And so I was like, I'm never going to do this again. But I sold my company and therefore didn't have health insurance because most of us get health insurance through our employer.
Hmm.
And so I went to what I thought was the only other option, which is the Affordable Care Act. So I got a plan for me, my wife, and my two girls, and I think it was something like 11 or 1200 bucks a month. And I kind of joke it worked until I had to use it. My wife or my little one was one at the time, and she was having recurring ear infections, and so we went to the pediatrician who said she's got a hole in her eardrum. That was confirmed by the ear, nose, and throat doc, who's like, "Hey, look, this is not that big of a deal, but we need to get it done soon because I am seeing some scar tissue in her ears, and we don't want any long term hearing loss." I was like, "Great." So we got it, that appointment signed up, went in network, did everything right. My ENT got a pre-authorization to do this. And so we did it. And, she was cured. I mean, she went from screaming all day long because she was in so
Wow.
much pain to not screaming at all and was a
Mhm.
happy little kid. And I was like, great, awesome. A few weeks after, I got a bill for the procedure, and it was $8,000. The procedure was 15 minutes and it was $8,000. I was just like, holy moly, like this is crazy. And that was marked down from $14,000. So the original price was 14,000, and due to the health insurance discount,
Yeah.
I got it for $8,000, the bargain basement price of $8,000. And I was like, all right, well, this is what health insurance is for. Is we had made it most of the way through our deductible, and so I was like, great. Little did I know, a few weeks after that, I was going to get another note, this time from my insurance plan that said it was medically unnecessary, and so they weren't going to pay for it. I'm like, wait, hold on a second. Like, my
But
daughter has a hole in her eardrum. My
and
ENT says that my daughter's got a hole in her eardrum.
he
Um,
got a pre-authorization to
and
do
he got
it.
it pre-authorized.
Right.
That's what he told me. He got it pre-authorized. I'm assuming he did. And so I went through 2 rounds of appeals, and still at the end of the day, my insurance company was like, "Nope, we're not paying for it." And so I had to stroke an $8,000 check to get this procedure paid for. I didn't know back then I probably could have negotiated it, but I paid
Mhm.
it. And it was at that point I was like, "Man, this system is just so busted that somebody's got to figure out a way to correct it." And so
Mhm.
I called my insurance plan. I said, "I quit. Like, you guys aren't going to pay my bills. I'm not paying your bills. Like, I have to refuse to be a part of this." And so I got off the phone, I went over to my wife and I said, "Hey, we're uninsured." And she kinda looked at me and like, "What?" And so she's like, "All right, well, I trust that you're gonna have this figured out." And I'm like, "I'm gonna figure it out." And so we started paying cash for everything, and I realized that, my cat when I paid cash, I was getting much better prices than when I had health insurance. I'm kinda, "Huh." I put this little story on it was at Twitter at the time. It hadn't turned to X yet, and so and some guy or an ENT reached out to me and said, "Oh yeah, we do these in our office all day long." And I think she said it was like $1,800 or something. She could
Because you
do it
had
for,
it done in the hospital, is
but
that
we had it
the
done in the hospital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the people don't know that
I
hospital
didn't know. I
setting
mean, I was
just is
ignorant.
yeah, well, I
And
just recently
I ran
learned
a
that.
healthcare company, and I was
Yeah.
ignorant. I had no
Yeah.
idea. And so I was like, "What the heck is going on here?" And so, it was at that point where I was like, "All right, I gotta figure this out." And it kind of came to me, it occurred to me one day. I was like, "Man, what if we enabled everybody to pay in cash directly, as opposed to going through health insurance? Like, is there a way that we could do that?" And I started, messing around with things and doing some spreadsheets and,
Mhm.
doing all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I think this is going to work. And so I started CrowdHealth in April of 2021. Oh, but and the other thing too, I realized is, I could pay. I've been extremely fortunate. I could pay $8,000, but the vast majority of Americans don't have $8,000 sitting around to pay for,
Right.
a pretty, kind of benign thing, right? I mean, it's just, it just happens.
Right.
Nothing we did it. That it's just, one of those weird things.
Right, it wasn't like your daughter was a smoker at age 1 or did something crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, and so I kinda got to this place, of being like, man, 200,000 or 250,000 families, depending upon the year, go bankrupt every year due to a health event, even though they have health insurance. And, that's a stat by Harvard. So you can, I think
Mhm.
Bernie did 700,000, but, whatever. It's like somewhere in
It's
there.
a
It's
lot of
like,
people.
that's a lot of people going bankrupt. And due to really high deductibles and these denials. And so it's like, how do we figure this out? So anyway, that's the backstory. And
Mhm.
I started Crowd Health in April of 2021 with really a mission of enabling people to pay their doctors and these facilities directly, and as a result, get way better rates. And not only that, the other thing I found too is when I was going into the doctor paying directly, it ended up being between me and the doctor,
Mhm.
without an insurance company or an employer or the government or whatever in between. It was like,
Mhm.
oh, like now the doctor works for me. The doctor
Mhm.
doesn't work for the insurance company who's ultimately going to pay them. I kind
Mhm.
of always say, like, you work for whoever pays you,
That's correct.
and so, now you have to be accountable to me, the end payer, as opposed to an insurance company. So it just dramatically like looked different.
Mhm.
So that's how it came out with Crowd Health. So we started in April 2021, and we've been going for, what is that, 4.5 years
Mhm.
now. I guess we'll be 5-year birthday in April. And we have about 20, we're just short of 25,000 people. We'll hit 25,000 by the end of the month. And it's just
And I
it's
read that
been a delight.
15,000 were added last year, so your growth rate your recent growth rate has been really strong. I mean,
Yeah, we
people
grew
must
about 200% last year.
It's amazing. And
Yeah.
how did when you started it, how many people did you have, and how did you make that work?
Yeah. I mean, I'm still thankful we had the first guy who was a non-Crowd Health employee to sign up, and he's from Houston, Texas. And he's still with us. Here he is 4.5 years later, and I'm like, "Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for being the first to step into this." And so, look, we had to spend a lot of money up front to get
Sure.
people, get people on. So I think I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but I think we
Mhm.
got 100 the first month and 200 the second month and 300 the third
Mhm.
month, and we just kind of, you know, grew it over time. And I thank God that we didn't have a big cancer case on day one.
Yeah.
And we have fortunately been able to, over 30,000 bills, get 99.9% of them,
Mhm.
fully funded.
Mhm.
And that's a heck of a lot better than what health insurance plans have done. So,
Sure.
ultimately, my big questions when I started, and it's funny, I when I report out to my investors, I say, hey, here's the three questions in which we started to see if we could figure out. And so every quarter I tell them, now what are we, 20 quarters later or something?
Mhm.
Um, it is this a viable way to pay for healthcare? Like, can we actually help people get their bills paid? Right. The second one is, now, will people actually buy it? Like, will people actually join?
Mhm.
um, because this is such a different way of doing things that I wasn't even sure, like, are people even going to join this? Or are they so like conditioned to believe that health
Sure.
insurance is the only way?
Mhm.
And then the third question I asked was, can we make this regulatorily viable? Like, make everybody in the planet, or not everybody, but there's a massive chunk of people who are getting paid in some way by the medical industrial complex. And so,
Oh,
they've
that's
got a
for
lot more
sure.
money. They have a lot more money than I do. And so, can we, and they have lobbyists, and
Mhm.
they give to political campaigns and all these kinds of things. Like, can I make this according to the legal code in 50 different states? And I just sent out my year end update to my investors earlier this week. I think it was Wednesday. So 2 days ago. And it's basically like, yes, we can get these bills viably, help people viably pay their bills. Yes, people will buy it. And yes, we can show to regulators when they inquire that, we're following the law. So, so far, so good.
Great. And I want to talk a little bit more about the regulatory environment afterward, but I'd like you to talk about how this actually works because for someone like me who, it was a non-negotiable thing. I had to have health insurance. My husband is a recently retired physician of, decades, and it just, there was no way. But this year we both started thinking about it differently, and I decided to make the leap, and I was not going to have any health insurance at all. I was fine with that. And then he discovered CrowdHealth through an investor chat group. And he said, "Why don't
Oh,
we look
interesting.
in? Yeah, why don't you look into this?" Because he's on Medicare, and these are free thinking people. I'm in a community of people who have changed their minds about things, particularly how captured the medical industry is. And so, similar to how I think your initial audience of Bitcoiners were, these are people who are willing to look at something differently.
Hmm.
Um, so how does this actually work? What is the model? How do things get funded? And who is it for and not for?
Yeah. But just one comment on your previous statement, because I think, there's this venture capital firm called Andreessen Horowitz. It's probably one of the biggest venture capital firms,
With Mark Andreessen.
Mark Andreessen.
Yeah.
And there was a study that came out, and I can't remember exactly the stat, but a huge percentage of the probability that a company is actually going to work is timing. I think it was 40 or 50%. Maybe even higher than that. Like,
That's
you know,
humbling.
you know, and so, ultimately what I think happened here is that I started in April of 21. So let's go back to April of 21. What were people dealing with in April of 21, especially 20 and 21? It was this COVID thing. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of people saw what happened during COVID, saw the lockdown, saw, the kind of the government. I think personally, this is a personal opinion, not to get political, but a kind of a tyrannical, view of how we're supposed to live our lives. And people are started
Absolutely.
questioning. So
Hmm.
people started this questioning of like, is the medical industrial complex on our side or are they not? Is the government
Hmm.
on our side or are they not? Or is it control and power or is it actually protection of the people? And so I think we entered into this time where people like you started kind of like rethinking some of these things, and
Absolutely.
including, how they're paying for healthcare. So we entered into an environment of people rethinking a lot of concepts that were, you know, dogmatic,
Hmm.
for their first, few decades of their lives. And so that helped. And now we're sitting in this place of skyrocketing healthcare premiums. that's clearly helped. And so I'd like to say, I had this brilliant idea, but in reality, like our timing was beautiful. I mean, it couldn't have been better timing. And then, how it works. And, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make crowd health work, not only in terms of like viably getting your bills paid, but how do you create an incentive system so that people treat others' money like it's your money? And I think that's one of the problems that we have in healthcare. Like we're basically going to the grocery store with somebody else's credit card,
Right.
and so it's like, how do you navigate that and get people comfortable with that? And so that's ultimately what we built. But we've got, like I said, a community of almost 25,000 people. And when you have a healthcare event, we ask you to pay the first $500 out of pocket, and then the rest of that is eligible for funding by the community. So let's just say you have, God forbid, a cancer case, and it's you know 20 different labs and 3 different surgeries and 100 different doctor visits and imaging and
Mhm.
pharma and all this kind of stuff. You
That's
pay the
one
first
event. That's
That's
called one.
one health
Okay.
event. Yeah. And so you pay the first $500 to that. And it doesn't matter if it's a year long event or a 5-year long event. You're just paying $500. The rest is eligible for funding. The reason is we wanted people to have a little bit of skin in the game.
Mhm.
You got to have a little bit, but not enough that it's going to put you into bankruptcy. Like everybody can come up with $500. You can figure it out. And so that was an important part, that zero people with Crowd Health, and so far it has been zero, go bankrupt because of a medical expense. Like that's really important to us. So you paid the first $500 out of pocket. The rest is eligible for funding. And so let's just say you have a $10,000 event. Just
Mhm.
making the math easy. You pay the first 500. The remaining 9,500, we'll go and ask 100 or 95 people for $100. So you get an email once a month, and it says, "Hey, Andy we don't say Andy, we say a
Right.
person
A
in
person,
Texas
right.
for HIPAA reasons. It's a person in Texas is struggling with cancer. Will you give them $100?" And you can say yes or no. If you say yes, then $100 goes from your personal account to their account. So at the end of the day, they have that $9,500 plus their $500, which they can then pay their doctor or their hospital
Mhm.
or whatever. And so that's how that works. And so then the question is like, okay, so why would I voluntarily give to this guy in Texas who I don't know? Well, if you say no, you just got to realize that when you then go and ask the community for help, the community will see, did you say yes, yes, yes to others, or did you say no, no, no to
Mhm.
others? And if you said no, no, no to others, then we have seen now over 30,000 bills that the community is kind of like, wait, hold on. Like, you want money from us, but you aren't willing to help the community? Like,
Right.
I don't think so. I don't think so. So when I said earlier 99.9% of these bills are funded, that point one
Mhm.
generally is the people who have said no to others and then expected the community to help them. And so, that's really, how it works. So let's do like a very specific example. So Andy goes to the hospital. Let's just say it's $30,000 bill. He gets those bills in the mail. I take a picture of them. I upload them to our app.
Mhm.
We have a negotiations team. We'll take that bill. We'll negotiate it with the hospital for you.
And you
We
also
get it.
negotiate things in advance. So if you knew you were gonna have a
Yeah,
surgery, yeah, okay.
exactly.
So go on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
you're
so that $30,000 bill, we're typically getting, 60, 70, 80% discounts off of that.
wow.
So let's just say it's 10,000, back to my original example. So it's 10,000. Like, all right, Andy, you're paying 500. We're sending the 9,500 to the community. We send it to the community, and then that $9,500 ends up in your bank account. And it's a peer to peer transaction. So it's between Joni and Andy.
Mhm.
Crowd Health doesn't get in the middle of it. And so now I have that $10,000, which I can then go and use to pay the hospital directly. So that's how
Okay.
that works.
A couple of questions on that. When you say crowd health doesn't get in the middle of it, I've had this experience once because I'm 1 month in, and it just was automatically taken from my bank account with my permission because I put, I'm
Mhm.
funding all reasonable bills up to the maximum month, which we have to talk about as well.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to proactively go to your bank, send some money.
Right.
The platform does that for you. The other thing is, how long does it take? Suppose somebody's faced with a bill, and how long does it take for the ask for the community and the money to get into a bank account generally? What's that turnaround time? Because some people may not have enough cash flow to fund something, and that might make them
Sure.
concerned.
Yeah. So you made a really good point, which is I will send Joni an email. Joni, when you sign up, can decide like, hey, I want to manually go in and say yes or
Mhm,
no. Or you can say, hey, just automatically say every yes for everything.
mhm,
And so it makes it easy on you, but we need to give you the ability to say no if you want to, because it's
mhm,
got to be a voluntary action. So I wanted to make sure that people understand that. And we only ask you once a month. Um, and if for some reason your credit card is declined or whatever, we might ask you twice. But the vast majority of the time, we ask you once a month.
mhm,
So it's not like you're getting 22 emails
mhm,
every day for that. And then uh, the second part of your question, your real question, which I didn't answer, was how long does it take? Typically, historically, it's been about 7 days.
mhm.
So when you submit a bill and we have everything that we need, from that point to when it actually hits your account, it takes about 7 days.
Okay.
Now, at the end of
Fast.
the year, it went up a little bit because, as you can probably imagine, everybody gets bills in at the end of the year just to make sure
Mhm.
they, get them in. And so it went up a little bit, but generally over the last, year and a half, it's been around 7 days.
Okay.
Um, so if you have like a pre-planned expense, so let's just say you tear your ACL. We had a woman tear her ACL in here in Austin, and she had a surgery about a week or 10 days or something like that later. And so what we did for that is we sent it out to the community first, so that she had the money before she showed up to that surgery, so that she could pay at the point of care.
Mhm.
And that was one of the prerequisites for this doctor basically saying, hey, I'll give you a really good rate, but you got to pay me at the point of
Right,
care.
right.
And so we do not expect people to come up with like tens of thousands of
Mhm,
dollars or whatever
mhm.
up front. You may have to come up with a few $100 up
Sure.
front, but if you've got a big expense, we can send that to the community before you go, so you don't have to front that money. And so that's how that works.
Okay. And you also have two plans. One is sort of what I call like a catastrophic plan called the Black Swan. And in that plan, the difference is you're asked before you can go to the crowd, you have to incur $15,000. You
Mhm.
have to put in 15,000 for yourself before you go to the crowd. And the difference between those two plans is just the maximum monthly ask per month.
Yeah.
Um, so, could you talk a little bit about what it costs to be a member of the crowd and
Mhm.
then what the maximum asks are per month?
Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about when I started was, the incentive system within healthcare is just so perverse that
Mhm,
health insurance plans actually want rates to go up over time, and people don't fully understand that. And they have an incentive in the year to decline bills to maximize profit.
mhm,
And so it just didn't seem to me that the insurance plan and the member were aligned in terms of, the economics. And so
mhm,
I wanted the economics to be aligned between our members and CrowdHealth. If the bills go really, really well, the members benefit, not us, and we then there and we I don't want us to have any incentive to like decline bills like health insurance companies do. So the way that we structured ours was that you're actually charged twice. Um, the first time is $60 per person per month.
mhm,
And that comes directly to Crowd Health. It's just basically a subscription fee. We call it
mhm,
the advocacy fee. And I can talk a little bit about like what's included in that. But it's $60. And then we ask you a second time during the month to help somebody else out directly. So that is on kind of that $500 plan. It's a maximum of 140 if you're a single under 55. It's 280 if you're 55 plus, or it's 420 if you're a family of four or more.
mhm,
So, and I say max because we only ask for what the community needs. So if the community is doing really well, we're going to ask less than that. And in fact, this month, of that 140 for the single person under 55, we're only asking for 65 of that. If you're
wow,
over 55, we're only asking for 130. And if you're a family of four, we're only asking for 195. So there's a significant savings if the community is doing well that the community benefits from, not Crowd Health.
mhm,
And so that was really, really important to us. And so we've only asked for that maximum, I think, four times in the last
mhm,
4.5 years. And that also gives us the ability to Like, look, what if 10 NICU babies or 10 cancer cases or whatever show up on my desk today? Well,
Mhm.
that gives us the ability to say, okay, well, it was $65 this month, guys, but next month we got, some big, stuff going on in the community. So we're going to raise it up to
Mhm.
120 this month. It's still below that 140,
Mhm.
but we will never ask you for more than that 140 number or,
Mhm.
280 or 420, depending upon what,
What you've
category you're
agreed
in.
upon. Um,
So yeah. So just real quick, like we will never ever ask you for more than that max. So what we do for single people under 55, just to use that as an example, $60 comes to us, 140 max goes to somebody else. So you can budget 200. We will never ask you for more than 200. That's the
mhm.
only fees associated with CrowdHealth. But if things go really well, then we're going to ask you for a lot less than that.
Mhm.
So, a single individual under 55 is paying 60 plus 65. They're paying 125 this month, not 200. And so that $75, they can do with it whatever you want. We're never going to ask for it back. We're never going to say we're going to claw it back later. It's
Mhm.
like invest it, take your spouse out to dinner, do whatever you want with it. And so that's the cool part of how we operate.
Do you ever anticipate? I mean, when I talk to people about this and when I thought about it as well, first of all, you're screening in a way for people with healthy lifestyles. You don't take smokers, you don't take terribly obese people, you don't take anyone under 65 or over 65, excuse me. And there are probably a couple of other things, maybe like, if you want to talk about how you create a situation where the crowd is relatively healthy and
Mhm.
motivated to take care of themselves. But still, things happen, like a NICU baby, which is millions and millions of dollars in bills potentially. Also, you
Some of our
talked about,
biggest ones have been NICU
yeah,
babies.
and you also talked about that guy, the unfortunate, unlucky guy whose gun went off and shot him in 3 places. He lived, which is wonderful. So do you ever get concerned that there could be a great number of cases all at once that came in and it would stretch you? What is there a possibility that the crowd wouldn't, with their maximums, be able to fund those things? And or is that just statistically not really possible? So I'm sure you
Well, I mean,
looked at
if
all the
something
numbers on it.
something crazy could happen, but if something that catastrophic happened, everybody would be in trouble. Even the insurance companies would be in
Yeah,
trouble, right? Like, so,
because it wouldn't be just you guys.
it wouldn't just be us. I mean,
Right,
everybody would be in trouble. So
right.
I mean, the probability is like way out there. However, for us, I think that the key component of this is we can, raise up, and this kind of variable month to month cost allows us to do that. Um, and most of the big cases that you hear about um, take time, and so for example, if you have a cancer case, we've got a great example, a little video on Travis, who had stage 4. His doctor's like, I think he said it, I was on the treadmill to death, or the treadmill to the grave, or something like that. He's like, he was about to go to palliative care, stage 4, super aggressive, and then fortunately with Crowd Health, he was able to bounce back, and he's cancer free. Praise God. Um, and but that takes a year or two, that cancer case. And so while it's a really, really big case, it that those, hundreds of
Right.
thousands, millions of dollars are stretched out over time. So it's not like this huge, like, bump that you
Right.
get. Even a $1 million or $2 million NICU case, if you think about that, we have care advocates. I don't know if you've met yours yet, but
Mhm.
we have an individual inside Crowd Health that is accountable for you, which is very different than health insurance plans.
Yeah,
So,
you can text her them at any time. Like,
yeah, you can
yeah, it's
text, you can
amazing.
call, you can email, you can, do these things. But what I hated about health insurance was, calling into a call center. The person doesn't know who I was, is probably in a foreign country. I had to wait 20 minutes to get them. They weren't able to answer my question. They would punt me to somebody else.
Yeah.
I'd have to wait again. I have to explain. I'm like,
Yeah.
and so like we have one person internally. And I say this because we're having conversations with you. So if you're having a NICU baby, more than likely you're calling us and you're saying, "Hey, I've got a NICU baby. It looks like they're going to be in for 2 or 3 months," and we're like, "Ding ding, $1 million bill, right, or more, right?"
Mhm.
And so ultimately, what we will do is we'll start crowdfunding right away. And so let's just play that out. We'll start crowdfunding for that right away. Your baby gets out of the hospital 2 or 3 months later. You get the bill a month, 3 months later. So now we're, 5 or 6 months into this. And then it takes us 3 or 4 months to negotiate. So now we're 9 months into
Mhm.
this. And we're crowdfunding along the way. And so it's not one of these situations in which you have this huge, spike in needs.
Mhm.
It's more these big things take time to kind of play out. And
Right.
so we have very good visibility into, what is currently in the queue of things to pay for. And so, and we can, crowd fund those along the way. So we don't
Mhm.
go from $65 a month to $140 a month next month and still not be able to pay the
To make
bills.
it, yeah.
The other
And
thing too is like
okay.
worst case scenario, like let's just say something big did spike.
Mhm.
Um, and let's say, just say it's, we use all the money that was allocated this month for bills. Well, that bill would be the first to be crowdfunded the next month. So it's just, a couple weeks later, as
Right.
opposed to like not getting paid. It's not like
Right.
we're like, oh, sorry, your bill didn't get paid. It's like, okay, you're first in queue the next month. And we haven't had to do that, but that's,
Sure.
hypothetically what would happen. So and like I said, most of these take time and you
Mhm.
have, a year to pay for it before it hits your credit
Mhm.
score. And so it's not like we wouldn't fund it. It's just a matter of timing,
Okay.
and
Well, and
so,
yeah, I think people, they just assume the worst when something's not guaranteed or it's not
yeah,
insurance. And, I found myself, I was reading all the fine print for this, and then I had to laugh because never in my life have I read all the fine print of health insurance, ever. And it was,
yeah,
so it's very interesting. And one thing I want to say, and I don't want this to be like an infomercial because that's not my point here. I mean, point here really is to really let everybody know about this option, and make people just to present a way that people can say no to a broken system. The transparency on your website with the people I've talked to from your company is really refreshing. I mean, I didn't feel like you were trying to pull one over. You're very clear on who you don't cover, what you will cover, what you won't cover, what to expect and not to expect. And so rather than get into the minutia of that, I think if anyone is considering CrowdHealth, they should read all those things and avail themselves of a 15-minute meeting or more with one of your representatives because
yeah,
all of those questions can be answered.
yeah.
Um,
And real quick, I mean, our
yeah,
member guide is written in a way that I kind of laugh every time I read it because it's kind of like in a little bit more friendly, less legalese. And I think ChatGPT said it would take 10 to 15 minutes to read, depending upon, how fast of a reader you are. And so it's not like a 125
yeah,
page Blue Cross Blue Shield of, I think it was Texas. I think it was like 125 pages. And I'm reading through it just because I was curious.
yeah,
And I was like, I don't even understand what this means.
yeah.
And I'm pretty adept in healthcare. And I have no idea what this is. And the font on ours is all the same size. So there's no fine print. It's not like little, six
Literally.
point font,
Mhm.
down below. It's like, hey, this is what we're about. And people, I think when they read through it, they kind of have a very good understanding what this is and what this is not. And like you said, it's not for everybody. We want people in our community who are taking care of themselves. And so, if you smoke, if you are obese, like those aren't things that we feel like, are kind of a part of our community ethos. And we've had a lot of people who, I mean, a lot, like, who wanted to be a part of CrowdHealth, were over the weight threshold and actually emailed us later and was like, I joined, I lost 30 pounds, I'm under the threshold.
That's
One
great.
guy sent me a picture of him and his wife, both didn't qualify the first try, and he sent me a picture of them finishing a triathlon. And he said, Andy, you have inspired me to get myself together. And my wife and I are running triathlons and we're members of Crowd Health. I'm like, dude, that's amazing. Like, that's awesome. He's one of my, favorite members. I got a few favorites, but, so it was pretty cool to see, the incentive system
Mhm.
align to get people, back. And I can go on and on about, obesity and metabolic health and things like that, which is, I think, ultimately the reason why our healthcare costs are so high. But we think it's important to incentivize people to be healthy. I always tell my people, I'm like, look, if we are successful, then our members will enter into Medicare and will get into their 80s and still be playing soccer out in the
Mhm.
backyard with their grandkids. Like that to me is thriving, as opposed to our current system, which I think is
Mhm.
like we're just going to take care of your chronic disease until you have a slow death. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Joni. I want a fast death. Like I want to play hard and die fast. I don't want to die
Same.
slow.
No,
And
no.
so, it's like that's where I think we can really like change the system is if we can get people to enter into Medicare. We can talk about that if you want to, but like um, in a healthy state, so it's not a suck on the system as
Right.
opposed to a benefit of the system. So we can't take care of people over 65, not because I don't want to, because I want to. It's Medicare regulations. We just can't
Oh, you
work within the
can't.
the Medicare regs. And so it's a real huge challenge for us, and we're working on it. And I'm hoping we're going to have something this year that can sit on top of Medicare. That is regulatorily viable, so people don't have to do these crappy Medigap plans or
Yeah,
Medicare
yeah.
Advantage plans and things like that. So we're hoping this year we'll have something for people to help them with all those kind of expenses that kind of are above Medicare. But Medicare expenses is just really really hard right now for
I would love to
regulatory
have you
reasons.
back on when you launch that. And just real quick, because I don't want to spend too much time on it. So, are you saying that if just say it was financially completely viable to have a plus 65, like sort of a retirement community, crowd health,
Yeah.
you're not able, like, do I like at age 65, people have to have Medicare? Or you're
Well,
not, and you're not allowed to provide an alternative community to them? If let's just say, if because they have different healthcare concerns, but
yeah.
is it a
Yeah, no, it's so Medicare has this rule where if you are on Medicare, you cannot pay cash for services covered by Medicare. Okay, and so you can
Whoa,
so the
interesting.
challenge with us is that if let's just say I'm 65 and I'm a member of CrowdHealth, but I'm not on Medicare, and I want to go into the doctor and say, "Hey, I want to pay cash for this," because that's what we do is cash pay,
Right,
right?
right.
The doctor will say, no, you can't pay cash because you're Medicare eligible. And so, but you can argue until you're blue in the face and be like, no, no, but I'm not on Medicare. It was like, you can't prove that you're not on Medicare. And therefore, if the doctor's office accepts cash from you and you are on Medicare, then Medicare comes
Ah,
after them. And so they're doing it as just a risk management tool to say, hey, we just don't accept cash for anybody over the age of 65.
I see. Okay.
And so it just makes it impossible for us to like work with doctors and hospitals and things like that because they will not accept cash for Medicare reimbursable, procedures or services if you are 65 or over.
Very
Um,
interesting.
so that's the challenge that we have.
Okay. Um, what else I wanted to ask a couple of other things. When you talked about, you found it's growing rapidly. It is a private company. I read recently, I think it was on your blog, that you are now over into profitability.
Mhm.
It's a profitable company, which I think speaks of the health of the company financially. So, that's encouraging for people. Um, as you've grown substantially, what have been the growing pains, or are they mostly benefits because you have more people and a bigger crowd of healthy people? The costs are going to go down, as you've seen over the last year, say.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the benefits and then some of the things that are more difficult. The benefits I think are real. One is, you get a $3 million cancer case, and I have 25,000 people as opposed to 2,000 people.
Hmm.
Clearly helpful that I have 25,000 as opposed to two.
Sure.
I think people, as we grow, people are saying like, "Oh, this is more and more viable," and more of these people are going and leaving reviews. And I think you posted something on X where people were like, "Oh, I'm a CrowdHealth member, and I'm a
Hmm.
CrowdHealth member,
Hmm.
and I love it, and I love it, and I love it," right? And so that's extremely helpful. The other thing that's really helpful is that, if you think about our members are going and getting healthcare services, they're paying in cash. So now we know what the cash prices are for a lot of these hospitals and these doctors. And so we log that in a database
Wow. Hmm.
and then we bring it back to our customers who are in that area. And let's just say Andy went to a cardiologist in Austin and had a great experience, and here was the price.
Hmm.
Now, if somebody else in Austin wants to go and look for a cardiologist, we can say, hey, here's a cardiologist that one of our members has gone to. Here's a price. It's super fair. They gave us a good discount because we paid in cash. I can get that back to our members. And so, and that reduces the price because now we're not going to a really expensive cardiologist, but still a really good one, just not,
Hmm.
it's a fairly priced one. And so there's a flywheel effect there that is really, really helpful. Um, So I think those are some of the benefits of being big. I mean, a third benefit is, you know, we have a huge chunk of our customers coming from existing customers. So if you're a member of CrowdHealth, and you refer another customer to CrowdHealth, you get $250.
Mhm.
And people are like, "Oh, it's just a MLM or multi-level marketing." It's not. It's like, "Hey, I prefer to pay my members to go and tell their family about it than
Mhm.
paying big tech companies to go and
Mhm.
advertise." Like, and we get really good members. Members who are referred by other members are typically better members. Like, they're just great. They get it.
Mhm.
And so that's another benefit. I would say the drawback is, things that you kind of referred to earlier, which is as you get bigger, the target on our back gets a little bigger.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
very interested in hearing more about that.
yeah, and so I think, as we get bigger, more people are hearing about us, and that includes people who, would benefit from our service, but also people who have an incentive to see the existing system continue to, thrive. And so, and that includes, big insurance companies, that includes regulators, that includes a lot of people who just don't want to see us, succeed. And so, yeah, we spend way more money than I'd like to admit on, regulatory attorneys and, legal fees in general. We've probably got the best regulatory attorney on the planet. And we've been approached by, half a dozen states saying, "Hey, you can't operate in our state because you are health insurance." And we then go through this dance of being like, "No, we're not. Yes, we are. Yes, you are. No, we're not. Yes, you are."
Because you are not health insurance. You are
Yeah,
not.
I mean, the biggest thing with health insurance is there's, one, the insurance companies pay the bills. We
Mhm.
don't pay the bills. Our members are paying the bills. And two, it is, a transfer of risk from the member to the company. So there's an indemnification, kind of an indemnification there. And one of the things that's hardest for our members to understand is like, "Hey, we don't guarantee your bill gets paid. I mean, here's our history. You can take
Mhm.
a look. And what we'd like you to do is take a look at our history. We don't guarantee." And the health insurance company's history, where they say they don't explicitly say they guarantee, but that's
It's
kind of the
implied. It's implied.
implied that they
Yeah.
they guarantee it. And I think we do a way better job at getting these bills paid than the health insurance plans. I was the right now about 1 out of every 5 bills that are submitted to health insurance are denied.
Mhm.
I unfortunately was the 1 out of 5.
Mhm.
And that's what incentivized me, or kind of propelled me to start Crowd Health. And so people think this is a guarantee where it's not. Like, it's not guaranteed your bill is going to get paid. And in fact, we talked to people who, are going through this insurance thing where they have a big event. And then what do they say? They're like, "Oh, well, now I have to go fight with my health insurance to get this paid."
After
And so,
paying all the premiums
yeah,
and the
exactly.
deductibles for the privilege of now being antagonistic toward your provider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've kind of are trying to overcome that. I think we have in many cases, is saying, "Look, we're just going to give you all the data." And so every month we have a transparency file on our website. You can go to it. I think it's in other on the top and then transparency. And it's all the bills that were submitted, what the status of those bills were. Did they get funded? Did they not get funded? We tell you total number of bills that came in, what they went to. Like, it's a total transparency file that ultimately we put out there, just be like, "Hey, we know we have to build trust. We know this is different." And so we're just trying to be as transparent as
Mhm.
possible on what's going on within the organization. And, most people don't give how many members they have. We tell you, we
Mhm.
say, "Hey, we have almost 25,000." I posted on X, how many members we have. So people are fully aware of what's
Mhm.
going on within the organization. And I think through transparency, you can build trust. And as I said, we have enough social proof now where people, 30,000 bills in, more than 30,000 people have gotten their bills paid. And so you can see it on X or Instagram or
Mhm.
Facebook or whatever, that people are like, "This is awesome." Like, I just went through a baby. I just went through cancer. I just went through a NICU situation, and Crowd Health like stepped up, went above and beyond. I felt supported. I felt loved.
Wow.
And I was like, "Man, that's what we're supposed to be about. That's health care,
Right.
And so that's really, really that. I'm sorry for going on because I get
No,
fired up about this stuff, but
yeah, it's great.
I asked my people, it was about a year ago now. I said, "Look, one of the things that I worry about as just kind of the CEO founder is what happens if Google or somebody who's got way more money than us tries to replicate Crowd Health? Like, why would people still go with us versus them? And somebody, popped up and they said, well, we just legit love our members. And I was like, I think that's right. Like, we do like legit love our members. And I get emotional every time I'm talking about this, but we had a member in Colorado. This little guy was hiking with his dad and he fell and he hit a rock and it sliced his cheek open. So he went to the ER, he got stitches and he was fine. And so our care advocate for them called and said, hey, how's the little guy doing? And the mom was like, well, physically he's great, but emotionally, he won't go on a hike with his dad anymore. And that was like their thing, right? And as a dad, I get that. And so our care advocate sent them this little like mountain that like this little like play like climbing kit to put in the middle of their living room. So the little guy, so he could get back to like climbing and being comfortable with that. And the mom called us just crying, being like,
Mm.
he's going to hikes with his dad again. I was like, man, that's so cool. It's like, so we will like do that stuff so that we want you to thrive emotionally and physically, but we want you to feel loved and a part of our community. And so I force our care advocates every month to spend a certain amount of money on our members to be like, hey, if they're going through something really hard, we want to make sure that they know that we're here for them. Like we're trying to, support them and love them really well. So anyway, sorry for going on that
Oh,
tangent,
don't be
but like,
sorry, but I'm just gonna start crying because I cry all the time at stuff like that, but that's really moving, and when was the last time your health insurance company called to check in on you?
yeah.
You
Yeah, we do that
Yeah.
all the newborns get little onesies and all the moms actually, before they go in, we give them a robe and really nice socks and lip balm and things that like I asked my wife, I was like, "Hey, when you had your kids, like what would you have loved to have before going in?" She's like, "Well,
Uh-huh.
the robes suck, the socks suck, I always feel like those hospitals, I feel like my lips get chapped,
Mhm.
and like, I was like, okay, let's give a little care package to all the moms before they go in and have their babies. So they have some stuff, there. And so it's just like little things like that that
Mhm.
we do that we think kind of go the extra mile to show our members like, hey, we really truly care about you. So that's our attempt at it. We don't always, get it right, but we try to,
Mhm.
to love our members well.
Well, I have to say, and that makes me feel very excited to be part of the community for sure. I love customer service. I love customer care. I used to own a business, and I was all about that. Very very much. And it's refreshing when it comes in a situation like a healthcare situation, which should be that, but rarely is.
Yeah.
So, great story. So back to the regulatory environment. So you're not health insurance, so you really shouldn't be regulated under that. And so in that category, I have a couple of questions. There are some states in the country where you have a minimum mandate, a minimum
Yeah.
required health insurance that you have to have. What happens in those states in terms
Yeah.
of is a member able to join or not?
Yeah, one of the misconceptions is that, as of 5 years ago or so, there was a federal mandate that you had to have health
Right.
insurance,
Hmm.
and that was eliminated in 2019. So there's not a federal mandate. I think there's actually a federal mandate, but there's no fine or anything, so you don't really have to have it.
Right.
There's no, issues with it. And then 5 states, it's, California, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Rhode Island, and then DC. There is a mandate to have health insurance. We still have people in all of those
Hmm.
places. You just have to pay a fine. And so, we have a calculator on our website where you can go through and see what your fine would be. And so most of the people find that the fine is less than what they're going to save.
Right. Right.
And so people just have to do the math on that to see if it makes sense for them. And it depends upon the number of dependents and how much you make and all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So you just got to do the math and to make sure that it still works out for you.
One other thing I want to comment about on your website, you have sort of a comparison grid that you can select different providers of the kinds of services that you have and compare all of them plan to
Yeah.
plan, which I found very interesting. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I know a little bit more about crowd health than the other things. It seems like it's very simple to look at the crowd health information and figure out what it is and what it isn't, and very transparent. So it's very user friendly. Um,
One of our core values is simplicity. I mean, I think that one of the things that people hate about health insurance is like it's so complex.
Yeah.
Deductibles and copays and max out of pockets and,
And
all these kinds of
donut
things.
holes.
Donut holes and, all these things. And I was like, man, we just got to make it simple so people
Yeah.
can understand what they're getting into. And that's so it's a core value of our simplicity. And so we try to make everything, as easy as possible to
Mhm.
understand.
Okay, and then, and one other thing I wanted to ask you is you were talking about as you get that target on your back, as you get bigger, at some point, there will be enough people, I think, who opt into a system like that to incentivize the current system to either go to the government and ask for different kind of regulations or that kind of thing. Do you see that happening? I mean, that would signal a very big movement here. Like
Yeah, I mean,
25,000
I think
people, that doesn't do it, but 2,000,000? I don't know. Where's the tipping
yeah,
point where something has to change, which I think is a really that's part of the reason I did this is because I wanted to be part of the resistance of a system that's broken, and I could think of no other way to do it than to just say, "I'm not giving you my money anymore." Like, if
yeah,
everybody did that, something would have to change. So, that's
yeah. I mean, the thing that would change is, our healthcare costs would drop by 50%, probably. I mean,
yes,
that's ultimately what would happen.
right, yeah.
And so, can you build up the political capital to say, hey, what we're doing is actually helping the system. It's helping people. I mean, so far we've saved our members like $60 million. That's money that's going
Wow.
into our members' pockets as opposed to going into health insurance pockets.
Mhm,
And so, at some point that number gets so big that the health insurance companies are like, "Whoa, we gotta stop
right,
this." And it's at that point where we have to prove you know, our system wide impact. And we're thinking a lot about that.
mhm.
Um, in fact, I think this year, probably be in Q3, we're actually going to dive into some of the chronic conditions. And help people with some of these chronic conditions. We're going to probably start with type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes has gone from 1% to 10% over the last 50 years. And the vast majority of that is type 2. And 25 cents of every dollar of healthcare goes to diabetes patients. People don't
Oh,
realize
wow.
how big of a problem this is.
Yeah.
And diabetes can be overturned. Like you can cure type 2 diabetes. And
Especially
so,
yeah, with lifestyle changes.
with lifestyle changes. And so, ultimately what we're going to do is we're going to have a diet type 2, we're going to, like exit diabetes, program. We're just basically like, hey, if you're willing to come in and go through a program and make lifestyle changes to overturn or reverse your diabetes, then we would like you to be a part of the community. They're going to have to pay a little bit more upfront,
Mhm,
and those types of things. But we think we can have a huge impact on diabetes and show the system that what we're doing is helping people with chronic conditions
mhm,
with through diabetes. And I think it's gonna be amazing where we're gonna have thousands of people go through this, and we're like, these 1,000 people now are cured of diabetes because of what we were able to help them with.
mhm.
And I don't, health insurance plans, unfortunately, and I had a really bad situation with the chief medical officer at a very large health insurance plan who's basically like, it was a commercial plan, and he's like, "Look, I don't really care about diabetes because they don't have all of the kind of secondary impacts of that until they're on Medicare." They don't lose
Wow,
limbs
that's
and
cynical.
lose livers
Yeah.
and things like that, transplants until, they're in Medicare. So there's like, that's not on my dime, right? So I don't really, I'm not going to spend the time to reverse that. Whereas we're going to take the approach of being like, no, 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 no. Like this has a dramatic impact on these people's lives. We're going to help them reverse that. It's 25 cents of every dollar of the healthcare spent. Like we are a positive impact on the healthcare system in whole,
Sure.
as opposed to just, our little community of people who are benefiting. And so that's
Mhm,
ultimately the direction in which we're going. And I think there's 3 or 4 other conditions that are, big chunks of our healthcare spend that we can help
mhm,
but through lifestyle changes. And I think that's ultimately the future is we've got to be aligned with our people.
mhm.
And I think we're going to be super successful at it. So I'm fired up about it.
That's really exciting. Do you see any kind of partnerships with the general, like, sort of MAHA umbrella movement of the people that really want to make change and make America healthy? Not necessarily those specific people, but that movement generally.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of Maha people
Yeah.
in our group. And again, not to be political, I think it's just more of like, hey, forget about the, MAGA versus I mean, like,
All of that.
if you remove MAGA from our vocabulary, would everybody agree that we need to make America healthy again? Yes.
It's
Like,
so simple.
it's simple, right? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, it gets mucked up by, politics.
Politics, yeah.
And so it's like, look, 88% of us are metabolically unhealthy. And so no wonder, our healthcare expenses are going through the roof if 88% of us are metabolically unhealthy. Like,
Yeah.
shouldn't we find a way to get these people who are unhealthy metabolically healthy?
Right,
And
especially
so,
kids, especially kids.
especially kids, I
Yeah,
mean, for goodness sakes,
yeah.
and so we actually have a longevity program too, where we'll give you up to a 20% discount if you show us that you're metabolically healthy.
Mhm.
And so what that does is it rewards the people who are metabolically healthy. And then it also incentivizes people who are not metabolically healthy to become metabolically healthy.
Right.
And there's a ton of education around that too, because most people, when you say metabolically healthy, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't
Mhm.
understand what this means. And so we do a lot of education to say, hey, this is what metabolic health looks like. Take this test. It's fully eligible for funding by the community. So you can get a baseline. And then, you can then make some lifestyle changes to get you to metabolically healthy. You can get, a 20% discount on CrowdHealth. Like, there's got to be an incentive program
Mhm.
to get people to, one, get educated, and then get rewarded as a result of being metabolically healthy. And those people just cost less too. So it makes
Mhm.
a tons of sense for our community. And it's illegal to do that within health insurance. Like, you can't,
It's illegal?
yeah, you
Oh, because
can't
it
give
could is it
people,
discriminatory?
yeah, it's discriminatory. I mean, it's under the, I don't know. I don't know. I think people are psyoped into thinking that these are discriminatory actions. In reality,
No,
like,
I meant discriminatory on paper. I wasn't like,
yeah, yeah,
I
exactly.
don't think it's discriminatory. I think it's helpful, but
Yeah.
everyone's so hypersensitive about obesity or, eating junk food or whatever it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we just think that, like, hey, when you're going for car insurance, right? If you're a good driver, you pay less. If you're a
Right,
bad driver, you pay more.
right,
Like, why does that make sense with healthcare? Like, if you're
right.
eating garbage or metabolically unhealthy, you should pay a little bit more. If you're metabolically healthy and you're taking care of yourself and making lifestyle changes, you should pay less. And by the way, that helps the entire system, because
Yeah,
you're not going to have these chronic conditions when you're in Medicare
right,
age and be a suck on that system, which Medicare is failing, at the moment. Or it's supposed to,
right.
fail by 2032 or something like that. It's going to be, more money
Whatever.
going out than is going to come in.
Right,
So,
right.
I think we're
And
going to be
your
fine.
life is
System's going.
miserable, and your life is
Yeah, your life
miserable.
is miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Let me ask one question because I know we have a hard stop. Is there an enrollment period for CrowdHealth?
There's not an enrollment period, so you can start whenever you want. You can end whenever you want.
Okay,
So
great.
if you wanted to start today, you could start today, and you could end tomorrow if you want.
Okay.
And it takes, depending upon what, if you read the member guide, that's 10 or 15 minutes, but the actual enrollment, getting signed up, is
Yeah,
10
it's really
minutes.
simple. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
somebody told me the
Okay.
other day they got it done in 4 minutes, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Awesome." So it's super simple. We asked for the basics. You do have to sign up for a bank account with
Mhm,
us. It's a CrowdHealth bank account, but that's just so that when we ask you for money, your money goes into your bank account,
mhm,
then it goes to the members, the
mhm.
requester's bank account. So
Yeah, it's super
that's just to make
simple.
sure peer to peer. So we're
Yeah,
not asking you to close your existing bank account or anything. It's just
right.
opening up another one,
Yeah.
and you have to do some stuff with that, but it's super easy.
Yeah. Okay. Um, I can't thank you enough for coming on. So thank you. And I'm very inspired by what you're trying to do. I am going to put all the links in the show notes to join. And full disclosure, I have a special link for me with the code is Joni. And the if I get income from that, what I'm going to do is donate it to organizations that are advancing good health, health freedom, and then the people who join with that code also get a discount for the first 3 months,
Yeah,
which, if you're on the regular plan, is pretty substantial. Is
yeah.
there anything else you wanted to say before we break about Crowd Health?
No, join the resistance, as you said. I'll use your word to help us, change this, because I think, ultimately, I'm looking at the future of my kids and my
Yeah, same.
grandkids and being like, man, like, I want them to grow up in a system that actually can, loves them and cares for them and takes care
Yeah,
of them, as opposed to the one that I feel like, is more predatory than anything else. So
absolutely.
come and join us. We'd love to have you.
And one other question, in this world, how chaotic everything is right now, what do you do to maintain a calm and productive and sane existence? What are
Yeah, I
your
mean,
tips and
I
tricks?
it's not really a tip or a trick. I in whatever, I keep grounded in, kind of a core of faith,
Mhm.
and so I think whatever higher power that you relate to, and, I don't mean to get, all religious on this, but I was like, "Man, lean on that." Ultimately, I've gotten peace through being like, "I'm not ultimately in control. There's a
Mhm.
higher power that's in control," and that gives me a ton of peace, and so that's really what, I survive off of. So, pray, meditate, spend the first 30 minutes of your day doing something other than looking at
Your
this.
screen. Yeah. Well, Andy, thank you so much. I'm inspired and I appreciate your time. And, we'll just be watching this company so closely. And I hope lots more people join.
Thanks, Joni. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Okay. Bye bye.